Good morning, afternoon, good evening. Today is July 9th, 2024, and you've joined the Kubeflow community call. And today, as always, we are recording this, and it is governed by the Kubeflow Code of Conduct. We're going to start off, as we typically do, with the status of of our latest release, which in this case is Kubeflow 1.9. And for that, I think we have Matteo, who's going to fill in. Matteo?
Exactly. Thank you, Josh. I'm going to fill in for Ricardo today. In the meantime, Josh, do you want to share the screen, or I can just to go through the minutes of the meeting notes? So I've synchronized with Ricardo earlier today, and actually we were having the meeting yesterday for the release team. So the current things that are being worked on from the release team is the blog post. So you will find in the, let me see if I can share the second monitor, or I cannot yet. So if you could share it for me, Josh, I'm sorry, because I'm not able to share it on this client.
Give me a second.
Thank you. So there is a pull request for the Kubeflow/blog that has been raised in draft by Stefano. So this is including all the comments that we had earlier from the different working group liaisons with the draft of the blog post. So everybody was tagged and invited to contribute there. We are, as well as the release team, we are waiting for the feedback from the distribution participant, so to act that their tests are good with 1.9. So if you are part of a distribution, or your colleague or your friend, it's a part of a distribution, please, Ricardo recommended also in the previous meeting as well, make sure that the testing is being done. So in the minutes of the meeting, you will be able to see the link for the testing. So please, a reminder, or if you are watching this recording and you are a distribution, please do participate in the testing, or comment back what you find, or that if you cannot, if you can no longer participate. There is from the releases team as well some finishing last touches on the documentation. So for that, I think as well something that Albert was working on. So this is being currently done in progress. And finally, discussed yesterday in the release team meetings, there are a couple of cut releases. By cut, I think I counted 3, one from Matthew and 2 from Andre, that, as far as I know, are on the loop and will cut the release for going into the Kubeflow 1.9. Ricardo also mentioned that the original release date of July the 22nd is still and remains on track. And if Ricardo will be watching this recording, I hope that I did a good justice of everything that we synchronized about yesterday and today. Josh, this is back to you.
All right, great summary. Any comments? Okay.
So I'll just seize the chance to reiterate to everyone, if you are part of a distribution or your colleague is working in a distribution, please remind them to send some feedback about the testing, if can no longer participate, if they're running late. The feedback communication is key. So yesterday I heard that there were something like a missing gap in communication with some of the distribution. So let sort of like, I don't know how you say that in English, but please announce yourself that you're on the thread, or help us to reach out for the distribution owners, please.
Yeah, the distribution testing is critical, and I think we've had some decent participation so far. I suspect that a few others will start providing some comments, perhaps Deploy KF and others will come in. let's just look at the timing here. We're at July 9th. The release date is the 22nd. I think we're doing pretty well on the blog post. And from what I heard, we're doing, well on the slide deck as well. So those are definite deliveries that we typically make as we release. The other kind of long pole in the tent after the testing is the documentation. We had some discussion about documentation yesterday, and we always get feedback from the community that we could do improve the documentation. I think there's been a lot of work to restructure the docs. But we read these things over and over, and often we get kind of very close to it. And it would be helpful if there are newer people here to the community who are reading either the blog post or the docs, either in kubeflow.org or on the GitHub. If you can just pick, one thing that you find perhaps doesn't read well and provide, some type of comment and maybe even some proposed language of how it could be improved. Maybe that helps people along. But, if everybody did that, we have 16 people on the phone right now, 17, luckily no one dropped off. If everyone did that, 17 improvements to the docs would be significant, right? So perhaps if you have a cycle, think about, trying to make one extra PR, one extra, help to improve either the GitHub, kubeflow.org, and or the blog post. That's a request. Okay. Anybody else have any comments? We do have a meeting with the CNCF later this week with the Kubeflow steering committee to talk about how the CNCF can help amplify the release of the 1.9 release. And, depending on what they say, we may want to pay attention to their guidance. Hopefully this doesn't throw any curveballs into our plans. But I think their guidance and support is worthy for us, and it's the whole reason we joined the CNCF. So let's see what happens. All right, that's enough on 1.9. We're getting close. Great jobs. All right, next topic, Google Summer of Code update. Ramesh?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I just want to take a very quick minute on this one. Google Summer of Code midterm evaluations are due on July 12th. So that's next coming Friday, this Friday. There is a hefty penalty for us not doing the midterm evaluations. So please, not getting our stipend, not getting to go to mentor summit. So please do take a time to update, give your evaluations. This is specifically for all the mentors. We got 20 mentors. Whoever is the primary mentor, is the one who can submit the evaluation towards that. But there wasn't a clear picture of how that is decided. So you guys know who those are. So please take time and submit before that date. If there are any questions about the student or their performance, if you want to talk to me about it, please reach out to me on Slack, and I can give you any guidance if you need anything. All right. Thank you so much. That's all I got.
Yeah, I did so for both of my students, and it takes around 5 to 10 minutes, so it's really not that much effort.
Thank you, Julius. I really appreciate that. I mean, it goes, not only, they kind of keep it as a a scorecard. I feel like, they look at this one in future too, when we go back, in 2025 asking for more interns, they may look at it and say, oh, you guys did not comply with it. So please take time, do those evaluations. Those are very important. Finish.
great
I want 100% on those, please.
Are there any Google Summer of Code folks on the phone right now on the call?
Do
Students
you
or
mean mentors or students?
Students?
I think they usually attend working group meetings, Josh, not this one.
All right, just trying to give them some exposure. Maybe they can bring us an update about what they're doing, but okay. Google Summer of Code update, fantastic. Hopefully people are very excited. I know there's a lot of great projects that are underway there. Add a lot of value into the coming releases of Kubeflow. We really want to make sure that value gets out there for a lot of reasons. Okay, do we want to go on to Trusty AI?
Yes, thank you. I think we have Rui or Rob, and I'm not too sure who is going. We have invited a couple folks from Trusty AI team to do a small presentation to Kubeflow community.
Yeah, I can do it.
Rui, yep, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, let me just share my screen. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
I'll take that as a yes. All right. Okay, so first of all, thank you very much, everyone, for the opportunity for us to showcase a little bit about what Trusty AI is all about. And my name is Rui. I'm the community lead and a software engineer and developer at Trusty AI. I think I'm joined in this meeting by two other colleagues from the Trusty AI team, Rob Giada and Christina Shu. So first of all, I'll just talk a little bit about what is Trusty AI, why Trusty AI needs to exist, what kind of problems tries to solve, what is the general architecture of Trusty AI, and what kind of integration points we can do with Kubeflow. Then I'll talk a little bit about the roadmap for the future and also some information about the community. So why Trusty AI? And in general, why any other tool like Trusty AI? So when we're dealing with AI, machine learning models, typically we want to aim for these properties. So we want to aim for ethical AI. That is, we want to prevent and detect any discrimination and bias in AI models. We want to aim for trustworthy AI. So that means we want human explanations for otherwise very complex and very opaque decision processes, usually insights into black box models. We want to aim for regulatory compliance. That is, we want to quantify and ensure compliance with legal requirements, such as bias, fairness, and right to explanation. We want the AI models to be reliable. So, for instance, we want to be able to detect anomalies, such as data drift, which cause inaccuracies. And we want to mitigate harmful content. So we want to monitor, mitigate it, and replace it, any kind of toxic or harmful content we might have in AI and machine learning models. So some concepts to achieve this are well known, and Trusty AI implements several of them. So I'll start with one of the main ones, which is explainability. And what is explainability? So as I mentioned, modern AI models are very complex, and sometimes we don't have access to their inner workings, so they're black box models. And decision processes are too complex for humans to understand. So explainability provides us tools and algorithms that help us as humans to understand the actual process and the outcome of that model. So explainability helps to build trust in these models because we can inspect their inner workings. We can validate our assumptions. So let's assume that a data scientist is working on a model and he has a certain assumption of what the most important features are for the decision outcome. Then he can validate them in production or during training phase that these assumptions are correct. And it can help us diagnose counterintuitive results. So if we find a result which is surprising, we can we can actually go back and see what was the cause of that decision. And it helps us with regulatory compliance, because we might need to prove that our model is following a certain regulatory requirement. So how does TrustAI implement this? So some examples of some questions we might pose during when dealing with explainability in a model is, which features are the most important to get this outcome? How much does this feature contribute to the final outcome? Or what can I change to get a different outcome? And TrustAI provides methods and algorithms to do that. For instance, it implements LIME, also known as local interpretable model agnostic explanations, which explains individual explanations by creating an approximate model which is locally linear. And the weights of those models give us the feature importance of each of those features locally. It also implements SHAP, which is the Shapley additive explanations method, which provides us an itemization of how much each feature actually contributes to the final outcome. It implements global explanation methods such as partial dependency plots and counterfactuals, which help us tell which is the minimal change we need to do to our inputs to get a desired or have a different decision in our model. We can actually use counterfactuals to tell us what do I need to change minimally in the inputs to get this decision that I want. So all of these are very useful tools to get insights into models. So the second most important concept, which I'm going to mention, is fairness. So this is mostly a requirement for ethical AI. It's another aspect of building trust into AI models, and it's a very common regulatory requirement. So there are several types of bias. For instance, we can talk about model bias. That's model that's actually built into the design of the model. So a model that's not correctly produced and is generating bias. But you can have data bias, where there is no bias in the actual design of the model, but the training data or the data that we're providing to the model is giving us biased results. And TrustAI also implements some identify and quantify bias. For instance, statistical parity difference, which tells us the difference between positive outcomes between protected and unprotected groups, and disparate impact ratio, which measures the ratio of the favorable outcomes between these two groups. And these kind of tools like fairness metrics can be used in several scenarios. As an example, we can use them while monitoring live deployments. So a model that's deployed in production, we can monitor how the fairness and bias indicators look like, or we can actually use them during the training phase. So if you're developing a model, we can actually detect early any kind of bias or fairness problems, and you can actually build in mitigation measures against that and deploy a model which does not have bias present. So all that said, how does TrustAI look like? So how does TrustAI implement this? So TrustAI actually consists of several components. At its core, it's actually the core library of TrustAI, which is a lightweight library with minimal dependencies that implements the actual algorithms for TrustAI. So this can be embedded directly in other projects, for instance, a Java project or a Python project. It also provides a Python module that allows to expose the core algorithms to the Python ecosystem. As an example, we can use TrustAI algorithms from a Jupyter notebook. And it also provides a REST service. So the REST service encapsulates the core algorithms into REST endpoints. And it also performs many other functions, such as connecting to storage to retrieve historical data, consuming inference payloads, exposing metrics to Prometheus, and interacting with remote model servers using HTTPC or gRPC. We also provide a Kubernetes operator. This is a very simple operator, almost a single-use operator that just manages what we need to deploy the REST service in Kubernetes. So it actually creates PVCs for storage, and it configures the model servers to use TrustAI. And we have other integrations, such as a K-serve explainer that provides explanations for K-serve models using the built-in K-serve explainer support. So in a nutshell, this is just a general overview of the connection between the different components of Trust AI. And one thing that this architecture allows us to do quite easily is that by implementing new algorithms and new methods into Trust AI core, we can make them available and leverage them across a wide variety of components by doing minimal changes. So by implementing a new explainer or a new metric, we can have them on Python, we can have them on the Trust AI service, we can deploy that as a service in Kubernetes with minimal changes. So this is just an example of one of the integrations we have, which is with Kserve. So this is not the Kserve built-in integration. It's integrating with Kserve on Kubernetes. And the model mesh integration is very similar, but what happens is when a Trust AI service is deployed and an inference service is also deployed on the same namespace, the Trust AI operator configures the inference service to also send its inference payloads to Trust AI. So with model mesh, we use payload processors, while with Kserve, we use Trust AI as an inference logger. And Trust AI collects the payloads, parses them to its own internal representation, and stores them. And then periodically, it calculates any registered metric using this historical data. This metric is then published into Prometheus or any other monitoring stack which you might want to use, such as OpenShift user workload monitoring. We have other standalone projects. So these projects are already released on our GitHub repos, but they're not fully integrated into Trust AI at the moment. So I'll just talk a little bit about these two examples. One of them is Trust AI out of distribution, which adds a prediction layer to models to quantify a certainty score, indicating what is the likelihood that a sample is in distribution or out of distribution. And we also have a detoxification suite that allows to score token toxicity and perform masking or replacement using the expert and anti-expert method. And this detoxification suite was actually recently released in our Python Trust AI library as an optional dependency. So how does Trust AI looks like if you look at a more general landscape of other similar tools or frameworks? So one thing about Trust AI is that all of our implementations, all of our code and releases, they're open source. So every code that we released is licensed under the Apache 2 license. We have bindings that allow us to be used directly either from Python or Java. We do have a POC about using Trust AI with the R language as well. Our own algorithms have been benchmarked as being efficient implementations, so either in the ballpark of the performance of other implementations or superior, and they're easily extendable. We have an active community, so we have releases every 3 weeks or so, and we maintain an active commit log in our repositories. We do support tabular and time series data types. This is mostly due to historical reasons, but we're also working on large language models and vision data types to be supported. And as I mentioned, we have integrations with Open Data Hub. We can deploy it on plain Kubernetes. We have integrations with Kserve and with Model Mesh as well. So a point which might be particularly interesting for this meeting is what are the integrations with Kubeflow or potential integrations with Kubeflow. So Python Trust AI is already integrated with Kubeflow notebooks, as we have a pre-built image which is available to use on Open Data Hub. So that, as I mentioned, allows all the Trust AI explainers and algorithms to be used from Jupyter Notebook. And also this allows for Trust AI to be used not only during the deployment phase, but also during the model development and training phases. We have released integration that I also mentioned with the Kserve built-in explainers, and they support SHAP and Lime at the moment. And although we don't have any integrations at the moment, something which is currently on our radar and which I see as a natural fit for Trust AI integration is integration with, for instance, model registry and feature stores such as Feast. So Just quickly, I can just talk very quickly about the integration with the K-Serve built-in explainer. So for this integration, we can provide explainability directly from the inference service manifest. So we don't need any trust AI operator, and no other external configuration is required. So all of the explainer configuration is done directly in the inference service manifest. And also, as I mentioned, this provides SHAP and WIME explanations, but with more explainers when they are available to planning to be integrated into the K-Serve built-in support. So another potential integration is having tailored pipeline step images or having integration with Kubeflow pipelines. So due to its simple but flexible architecture, we can just reuse the Trust AI core. And I think it lends itself naturally to this kind of integration point. So as a case in point, Trust AI can be used as a pipeline step in a Kubeflow pipeline, and you could provide features such as real-time bias and fairness calculations, data drift measurement, toxic content filtering, scoring, masking, and also global explainability relating to the overall behavior, quantification of the global behavior of the model in a Kubeflow pipeline. So we do have many things in our roadmap. So I think first and foremost is to generalize our algorithms to support other data types. So I mentioned historically Trust AI supports tabular data, so we focus on classification tabular data. But obviously the landscape in AI changed dramatically in the last year or so, as everyone knows, and we're expanding the supported types to include vision data, audio data, and natural language processing data with a view for large language models, obviously. And we're also working on enabling trustworthy AI tools for large language models, namely integrating Trust AI with the LM evaluation harness to provide a large language model evaluation abilities. So I'll just leave some resources if anyone is interested in looking further into this. So these are the links to some of our main repos. So the core library, the Python bindings, including the documentation, tutorial examples, and Jupyter notebooks. We have a community presence, so you can reach us on Slack. You can look at our roadmap on GitHub, and please welcome everyone to participate in the discussion board that we have on GitHub. And I'll also leaving a link to the main documentation repository on Trust AI. So I think that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And thank you very much for your time.
So our motivation to present here today is to, obviously, Trust AI is already an open source community project, but we want to bring more open governance to this project and more exposure. And that is one of the reasons why we are here today and presenting to the Kubeflow community and see if this is of any interest to this community. Is this a good fit? Any kind of questions we may have. We think it's a good fit. There's lots of useful applications, and we can make it happen. Obviously, our personal interest is to grow our community more and expand the reach. So there is no doubt in that. Those are our yeah. I mean, please ask any questions you have, and we'll try to. I think I see Andre raise your hand. Yeah, go.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for great presentation, Rui. It's very interesting. So I just have a few questions for your presentation. So first of all, you mentioned that based on these algorithms, data scientists or ML engineers that make a decision about their, about their models, right? So can you tell more about like the user journey and what is the personas who are actually using these algorithms to, improve their models for trustability, right, and their data?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the aspects of Trust AI that I mentioned was the ability to pinpoint problems regarding certain aspects of your model, such as, for instance, fairness and bias, so avoiding discrimination, or trying to debug some problems in your model, which you might not be able to do if you have a black box model. So those are two separate concerns. I think for the data scientist persona, so let's assume someone that's working on a Jupyter notebook, preparing a model, they can actually have at their hand a tool set or a toolkit that allows to have very specific metrics and quantifiable numbers about these properties that we're talking about. So let's say fairness, bias. So if they're developing the model, they can see, well, is my model biased? Is this protected group affecting the decision of the model? So let's say if I have a model that's predicting, I don't know, a loan application, I want to make sure that gender or race or any other protector attribute does not have an impact on the final model. And if it detects that kind of problems, then it can go back to the drawing board and try to redo the model. Then there is the other persona. So I say someone that might have a model deployed in production, and it could be a model that they produced or they didn't produce. Although if they're using a model in production that they didn't produce, that's another question. Then they can monitor the model in real time. So they can actually set up some kind of monitoring workflow to give alerts or to actually trigger some kind of other workflows if they detect that one of these metrics is below or above a certain threshold. So these are just two examples of two personas that might use this kind of tools.
Yeah, that makes sense. And how familiar are data scientists from your past experience with those algorithms to detect bias and other aspects of the models, right? Because like sometimes the scope of data science may be minimal, right? So they might be well aware of different architecture, right? Different patterns of how to build the models. But like how do they actually make a decision based on this output usually? Or it's like up to, other engineers who helping them to make the right decision and deploy model to production?
So I guess that would depend a lot on the kind of
Mm-hmm.
on the kind of organization or a kind of work organization. I'll guess that data science by itself would include it as good practice to check for these quantities. And the advantage of using the Python workflow is that the APIs are simple enough to be able to be integrated in other steps. So there isn't a huge amount of boilerplate or setup to do this. They can actually just pass a model that they're as long as it supports a specific, say, predict endpoint in Python, they can pass the model and they can get a metric for that. In some other situations, I guess they would have to actually measure it as a legal requirement. So if they're deploying a model in production that's actually making a decision that affects someone's life, in most places, you would have some kind of regulatory requirement that you test. Again, you test bias and fairness and other properties before actually deploying the model. So probably they would have to use some tool to the same effect.
We also have lots of some examples as well as the API documentation there too, and for helping the data scientists or whoever the end user is.
Yeah, I have a few more questions, but Chanda, go ahead with your question.
Yeah. I'm a data scientist. I recently graduated out of UT Austin. I'm exploring few modules already as part of my experience. My question is how can I contribute for this module in terms of improvising fairness, especially in the model? Is there an open forum where I can join and contribute, play around and contribute to the model? Or
If I understand correctly, the question, Chandra, if you want to actually be engaged into Trust AI, and yeah, for sure. So in that case, I mean, we have GitHub org, when all the repos are there available for the community, and you're more than welcome to submit any kind of questions in the discussion boards or actually any kind of issues that you might find. So yeah, we're more than happy to engage with everyone that wants to participate in the community. Yeah, so I'll put the links in the presentation, but I can just add them to the document in the end as well.
all right, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a
Josh?
series of questions, if that's okay. I just want to make sure I understand a few things. It's a great presentation. I really appreciate it. So if I understand this, I would say that this fits an ML ops process. It's Kubernetes based. It's open source. You have an active community base. It's integrated with some Kubeflow already. It adds value to the workflow that people have, and it fills a gap in the Kubeflow offerings today. I don't know if I captured those correctly, but I think I probably did. Did I get those about right?
Yeah, I think so. I would say that we also have a facet that's not just Kubernetes based, like for instance the Python Jupyter notebooks, which obviously are deployed at the moment as Kubeflow notebooks, but can be used in any regular Python workflow. Yeah.
So we categorize as a core algorithms, Josh, as well as a Kubernetes extensions to those core algorithms, in terms of whether how we package it up, right? With the operator and the integrations with the case of those are more Kubernetes specific, but the core algorithms itself, that SHAP and all the algorithms that Rui was talking about, those are not any Kubernetes. They're just libraries and frameworks, right? We bundle them up into additional artifacts to work in as a Kubeflow. Or even in future, our thinking is to work with the LLMs and provide support there. So we are not just trying to limit this project to only on Kubernetes, right? Trust AI on only on, but it's everywhere.
Okay. Okay, couple of more questions. Any idea of the number of users, like Slack or whatever, 10, 100, order of magnitude?
We don't have much visibility on the number of community users. We do know that we have users, and some of them, unfortunately, we're not at liberty to disclose the names, but we do have users. But obviously, one of the goals that Trust AI is trying to achieve is to increase our presence in the community and be part of potentially a larger effort that can actually grow our community. But we don't have much visibility in terms of this. I guess that most of our community users will probably come from the Open Data Hub route. So people that use Trust AI in the Open Data Hub.
Yep.
Maybe I can add a little bit more there, Josh. Is we have internal customer. We have customers from the Red Hat perspective. Obviously, that's what Ruiz was going after. Who is actively developing and using this right now? As for the community level.
It's a new space. I get that people will be cautious about because of the sensitive nature of the kind of work we're doing here. Users may be a little bit cautious about raising their hand and saying, hey, I'm using this to monitor my models.
Right.
So I get it. I'm just trying to get a baseline. It's not.
I also one thing I want to accentuate. Sorry for cutting you off, but I want to make sure that before I forget, I don't think Rui went into detail on the competitor page. But if you saw that one, either available options are either closed source or a very restricted licensing. Trusty AI is at least as far as we know, is the only truly open source project. We are even trying to push it even further, right? The need for us to be here today, not only just for the more exposure, we are also looking for a more open governance, right? That's what we are trying to do, and so that there is no future where somebody is going to come in and flip this one into a BSL license or something else. So So you go back, if you weren't paying attention, go back to that page where we mentioned that. So I want to say that before, yeah.
No, that was very powerful. And kind of two thoughts come to my mind there, right? One is I assume that the majority of the Trusty AI folks are from Red Hat or from IBM, excuse me. They're IBM folks.
Yeah, right now, yes.
Right? Not a problem. Just want to be on the up and up so people know that, right? I mean, we have plenty of working groups that have been sponsored and offered from, I mean, Kubeflow came from Google, so whatever. So that's not a problem. Just want to make sure that people realize that. But the question does come in that all of these spaces evolve. Sometimes projects might show up that do need that might be complementary or overlap a little bit with what's already in Trusty AI, and perhaps they also want to then, because they see this benefit that you guys are identifying and being part of the cube, that they might want to join in to become open source as well. I'm just wondering what the philosophy would be, you know, if another tool came in and said, "Hey, I are part of a community and wanted to join into this segment, into this, let's call it a working group." What would be the philosophy there about allowing other technologies that might have a little bit of an overlap? How would we resolve that, right?
I think we kind of showcase some of it, right? I mean, Rui, maybe you can take on after I give my half, but we kind of already showcased some of it. Like one of the things, if you from Rui's presentation, LM evaluation. LM evaluation is not something we do, right? That is another Ethereum AI, or it is an open source project. What we are trying to do there is we are trying to integrate that, right? So we are already showing some of the algorithms, not necessarily, there are some algorithms our team developed, but there are some other algorithms we use it from the other external libraries. So we are kind of working both as an integrator as well as developing our own, where we see where there is already established. Once we use it, otherwise, yeah, we are developing. So at least I can say that we are willing, we are open to work with that. But Rui, please go ahead or correct me if I said anything incorrect there.
And I agree with your assessment, Ramesh. So I think it's, even though many or the most of the algorithms implemented by Trusty AI are built by the Trusty AI team, we certainly don't have a problem into integrating other open source algorithms into Trusty AI if the justification or the scope gives the need for it. And yeah, I think it's more of just AI being a kind of this flexible architecture that we have the core and then we build the integrations on top, means that we can very easily expand it to add integrations to any future technologies, or actually bring in any kind of protocols we need to support or anything we need to support. But in essence, I agree with Ramesh said. So yeah, it's not it's both an integrator and containing our own implementations. Yeah.
We haven't done this before, but y'all might want to think about, let's just say somebody came in later with some, and everybody on the working group lead is Red Hat or IBM, whatever. And y'all kind of have the keys to the kingdom, right? So, they make a business case and they want it to be included in. You guys are, well, we're the working group leads and it overlaps. I'm not saying that you would do that. I just want to make sure that there is some process to where if somebody comes in and has some type of technology that might be overlapping with what's there and they want it really hard to put it in, that they have some path to at least have an analysis outside of just the working group if it's all IBM to start off with. Do you understand my kind of philosophy there? I just want to be fair if we're going to be open source. And you guys have been fair every way. I'm not saying that you're not. I just want to make sure that we recognize that point. Anyway, Andre.
I agree with Josh's points. So can you, I know we have like 12 more minutes and one more topic, but Can you explain a little bit more about the differences between what you are doing and what IBM doing with Trust AI? Because so when Dan and Animesh and other folks was building Kserve, and when they migrating over the Kubeflow organization, the main point was to integrate Kserve with AI explainability, right? And have it more natively integrated with Trusted AI platform and IBM. So can you share like what is the differences, what you're doing and what they're doing?
I'll
Sure.
hop onto this one, Rui, if you don't
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Rob. Go ahead.
So the key differences with the AIX project is first, the AIX project is kind of abandonware from an IBM perspective. Like it's not an active community. It's not really been developed actively in the last few years. And the big difference in terms of licensing ability, and this is, I think, super relevant in wake of Selden changing their license, is that IBM's AIX libraries are mostly anthologies of other open source libraries. So a lot of their algorithms are imported from other modules, for example, that they don't actually own and or have written. So they're liable for these kinds of issues of these imported modules changing their licenses. And so the advantage of Trusty AI is that since we write the majority of our algorithms in-house, we maintain a significant amount of the licensing rights to these algorithms. So we won't fall into danger of the core bulk of our library suddenly going closed source, and then we can't offer anything. So that's the main advantage is activity and ownership.
That makes sense. Did you try to collaborate with IBM folks to see, like if we can, build some open communities and, make it algorithms more open source, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so so like what we were saying earlier, the bulk of the Trusty AI community is Red Hat, but a significant amount of our contributions have been from these IBM teams that were involved in AIX 360, for example, coming and bringing in their algorithms into Trusty AI as well as an open sourcing platform outside of the internal IBM stuff. So we have already got strong links with IBM Research to bring in their algorithms that way and sort of create this joint platform of development. So it is a strong collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, because, I think it would be nice from my point of view to understand like long-term vision, like 3 to 5 years plan from, from Trusted AI, from AIX folks and from all of you guys, right? And it's like how like we as a community can, be more vendor neutral, right? And have more folks like specifically data scientists, right? Like, maybe some students from university be involved, right? Some people like some other research teams who know how to, build this, trust AI algorithms, be able to contribute to something which will be open, right?
Yeah.
Because I can see that right now Trusted AI that are under like Linux Foundation, but I guess like still their majority come from IBM, right? The majority of contribution.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we are trying to change here, right, Andre? The exposure is something, we currently are falling behind, and having part of a bigger community that definitely helps. Thanks Chandu for raising the hand. We need another another few more people like Chandu to raise their hands and come say that I want to stress the point that another reason is, we do not want, even tomorrow if IBM or Red Hat comes and says, oh, this is our IP, we want to change it, we want to put a stop to that, right? That's why we are here. We are saying that, okay, let's move this into an open governance body that nobody can touch it going forward, right? It's going to be whatever the governance body of the Kubeflow/CNCF is going to be control of this project. Maybe as the individuals, Rui and Rob can, as a working group leads, they can probably control a little bit of the roadmap in terms of what they are working on, but the ownership of it can never change. That's the value prop. At least that's what we are after.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the chief value in the development of any kind of thing like this is that it has to be sourced from as many different viewpoints and perspectives as possible. Like we can't just two people define what fairness or what equality is in these models. We need this broad set of viewpoints. And so that's why we're coming here, is to get that. We need a community. The biggest failing of Trusty AI is the fact that it is this single vendor contributed object. So I agree with you on all fronts that I want more contributors. I want more sources. I want more companies coming in and saying, here's some stuff we want to add to it.
All right, we have one more topic to cover today. We need to get this to a place where we can get a decision point on Trusty AI. I don't know that we have to immediately go to a go, no go. I'm glad to try to see if we can get there. We'll talk about it in the Kubeflow steering committee. I don't think that they should be the final say to begin with. I'm wondering what is a proposed, like in the next minute or two, what can we do to get to a next step on this? I guess, Andre, we need to talk about it and
Yeah, I would sorry, like I would love if maybe some folks from IBM also can come in and talk and like and speak about their perspective and see how we can collaborate together. I think maybe it might be good for us to understand like, you know, what their vision, what your vision, what our like vision as a community moving forward. So we can see how we can close collaborate together, especially, you know, with case of integration, right? And how these things work, right? So, but again, I agree maybe with you, Josh. Maybe we should also have a follow-up with other folks from steering committee to see what we can do there.
yeah, I honestly, I know we're coming on a holiday period. We're also finishing up, but we're at the middle of the month. I don't want to drag this out. You guys have been good to bring it up. We should try to somehow get a decision into the month or into August, whatever, about what we're going to do. From a Kubeflow standpoint, if we're going to be no, we should tell them. Right? My inclination right now is yes, but I'd like to have more scrutiny, right? And make sure that everybody goes in this with eyes open. I'm one person's opinion, right? So, but to the point is like, where do we get to a go, no go on this? And so maybe we need to discuss it more, but somehow we need to get to a decision point.
We can start with a small proposal issue there too, Josh, if that helps.
Yeah. I think that's probably the most logical way.
Mhm. Then
I don't know that we have to go for the full, is it in or out, but maybe there's a baby step we can go to first, and maybe we can think about that.
we can start a proposal with the presentation we have today and the resources there, and saying just that, hey, this is what we are proposing. You know, not necessarily the architecture and full blown out of it, and then let's start a community discussion there.
Yeah, maybe the PR is just getting all the steering committee and all the working group leads to comment on whether they think it fits and what concerns they have. And then from there, we go to like, okay, should we vote on it, you know, in a second PR that would come later? But let's just get comments somewhere first and try to get the, you know, the active people to, and it'd be nice if we could get a base user to comment into, right? It would be nice to have some type of couple users that would say, yeah, I'm willing to help with this. Even if they're internal to IBM.
I'll be lobbying Chandu right here.
Right, exactly. I mean, this is like fantastic, right? So I appreciate it.
I
I
appreciate
can lend
it.
my hand. That shouldn't be a problem, but you know.
Yeah. So anyway, look, I've gone on too long here. You guys got to keep me on schedule.
Okay. Thank you so much for the time. Yeah, appreciate it.
Andre, V2 Kubeflow training, V2 APIs. Is this you?
Yeah, I can do it quickly, definitely. So
yeah, I apologize.
Yes, thanks again for your presentation. Really appreciate it and exciting to see how we can move forward with this. Yeah, so I just want to quickly share what we have done for the last like 3 to 4 months. So just to give you a little bit of context. So after the KubeCon, we met with some folks from the batch working group in Kubernetes, and we kind of like see how we can make distributed training and fine-tuning in Kubeflow better, and how we can integrate with existing Kubernetes ecosystem to make sure we can support the latest features from batch working group, from job set, from jobs, to like especially for large scale use cases on distributed training. So I have this proposal. Let me maybe share quickly my screen. Josh, I can maybe share by myself if you want to. Just give me a second. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Right. Yeah, just so this is the proposal. As I said, like we've been working on this for the like last couple of months, and we kind of like establishing the new APIs. And just to give you a little bit of history, so Kubeflow, when Kubeflow was started in 2017, originally was a project to run TensorFlow jobs on top of Kubernetes. And after this, we kind of like developing different frameworks, different algorithms. We kind of like supporting more frameworks like PyTorch, also like MXNet, XGBoost. There are so many like different operators that we kind of like implemented during the years. And back in 2021, we decided to unify them in a single operator. Right now, we call it a training operator. So what we want to do as the next step after this unified training operator, we want to also like support new kind of way of how data scientists create the jobs. So by offering them two different resources, the train job and the training runtimes. And the question is here, I'm not going to go through the details, but the motivation behind is just to give the data scientists minimal number of parameters they can configure, and the ability for platform engineers to pre-create the runtimes so data scientists can easily and quickly reuse it in their experiments. Because sometimes some complex parameters like portfolio policy, success policies, or even MPI configuration might not be really understandable for the data scientists. But we want to make it very simple for data scientists to scale their experience at the same time have a full power of Kubernetes. So you can go through this proposal how the API will look like, but the idea is just to give them the one CRD called train job, where basically the data scientists can reference to pre-created runtime. And the idea of runtime, we can even pre-create runtime for fine-tuning, like runtime for maybe Llama fine-tuning, or maybe for Gamma, for Mixtral, for all of these open source models that you have on the Hugging Face. We can pre-create the configuration for this model so you can quickly fine-tune them on Kubernetes without like worrying about how to set up the appropriate parameters. And the idea is like data scientists can also like tweak this API by providing their own data sets or their own models, and also like at the same time hiding all this complexity. Yeah, so I probably won't go to like all the details, but please review this proposal. Let us know about any of your comments, and we will like submit this enhancement proposal this week by end of this week. Yeah, I know we're over time. Maybe any questions that you have why we're doing this maybe?
This looks wonderful, Andre. I mean, I think that reducing the complexity of Kubernetes is very important. Being able to reuse settings, especially at a low level Kubernetes settings, if I understood kind of the
Yep.
point. Probably going to be music to the ears of people. And so I think this is right in line with, our overall, let's reduce complexity.
Yeah, this
Yes.
is a great step forward, like for collaborating with others from the Kubernetes community. I think it's very important to reduce any redundant work that we are doing and align with
Yep.
a larger community. Maybe like in the long run, like I hope like these communities could work much more closely together. So yeah, thank you for doing this, Andre.
Yes, yeah, I think Johan is right. So I think that one of the main motivation for us to reduce the duplication, what we're doing in Kubeflow today, and like contribute as much as we can to the Kubernetes upstream directly. So Kubeflow is like a bridge between ML ecosystem and the Kubernetes ecosystem, but we don't want to reinvent the wheel, right? We don't want to like recreate some workloads which will be natively integrated inside Kubernetes. So this helps, again, like it will help us to make us more closer to Kube community and more closer to the ML community. So yeah, right. And we're planning to actually add support for like more frameworks, like like we planning to migrate to MPI v2 and also supporting JAX, MLX, by like having this kind of more abstract CRD on top of the like all this ML features that is supported by different frameworks today. All right, I know we're over time. So any last questions, comments for this call?
So that proposal is for comment now, and you've got a lot of comments on it, or what's the next step on that?
Yeah, so like you can give your comments by end of this week, and we will create the PR by this week. I think by Friday, as enhancement proposal to training operator, and we will slowly migrate the API as V2, Beta 1, maybe Alpha 1 API, for a couple of more releases for training operator. Yeah, initially we're planning to support like PyTorch jobs and API jobs, but we will expand it to more type of jobs in the future.
All right. So will this be somewhat of a breaking change then?
Yes. Yeah, for V2, yes, it will be breaking change for most of the users who are using the existing PyTorch jobs.
So you'll have a breaking change, so there'll be some expense there to learn, but you're going to get a lot of benefits out of it.
Yeah.
So, the juice is worth the squeeze, basically there. Okay.
Yes, I think like the most call of actions from us as the users. So if you're a user of existing training operator, please review this proposal and let us know if you have any concerns or any like strong objections for us to not to do this. So far, we don't really hear a lot of concerns from end users, at least what with whom we spoke before during the last like 4 months.
Good deal. Well,
Right.
thank you for that leadership there. Best practice, I think. Okay, I think we're at overtime. Any final comments? Anybody? All right, I think go ahead, Rick.
No, sorry. I was just preparing to say goodbye.
Yeah. Just want to say, hopefully this meeting was valuable. I learned a lot today. I think the content is better when we talk about, what actual use cases and things like that, as opposed to, lots of other things. But thank you for bringing content to this call. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
All right.
Right.
Bye now.
Thank you. See you, everyone.